Joining me on the panel tonight is Deputy Superintendent Sam Schneider, Executive Director for Curriculum and Instruction and Professional Personnel, Dr. Lori Kerner. We have Dr. Maria Casamassa, our ELA Director. Denise Stevenson, our Director of E&L and World Languages, and she's also serving as our moderator tonight, as she has been for all of our meetings. Thank you, Denise. We have Terry Culhane here, our Director of Security. Ryan Jacobellis, our Director of Facilities. And Mr. Pat Burke, Principal of Pulaski Street School. And Ms. Callan Lonergan, Assistant Principal of Pulaski Street School. So thank you to all of our panelists. Thank you all for joining us this evening. Tonight, I'll go through a presentation that's a little general for the K-6 families, and then I'll turn it over to Mr. Burke, who'll share some specifics about Pulaski Street. And then after that, we invite you, if you have any questions, to type them into the chat. I'll go over how to do that momentarily. We do ask, if you have questions, to hold them towards the end of the presentation, because some of your questions may be answered. And we recognize there's quite a few participants here tonight, and we want to be able to answer everyone's question, especially the ones that we don't get to in our presentations. So first off, I'd like to thank all the families for taking the time to join us, and thank you if you completed the survey, and it's very helpful to us. If you have not completed the survey, we invite you to contact the building, and the building will take the information from you so that we can best meet the needs of all of the students. This is a very difficult time for families. We recognize that difficult decisions needed to be made over the past couple of weeks and moving forward as we start the school year. And we want nothing more than to have our students full-time, 5 days a week in school. Right now, we're under the guidance that we have to socially distance the students, and safety and health are our #1 priority during this time. So that is why we needed to divide the kindergarten through 6th grade students into 2 cohorts. We just don't have the space to fit all of the students, and we don't have the staff to have twice as many sections of students where we can have students in full time. So I'll start the sharing of the screen. Okay. So if you want to ask a question later on in the presentation, if you click on the Q&A button that you'll find at the bottom of the screen, if you're on a desktop or a laptop or a cell phone, if you're on an iPad, that button is at the top of the screen, and you'll type your question in, and later on we'll read the questions and provide responses. So elementary families have a choice of 2 options. The first is the hybrid model, where students attend in school 2 days a week. Right now, the principals are very busy assigning students to cohorts, either the Monday-Tuesday cohort or the Thursday-Friday cohort for in-person instruction. The students will spend most of the time in their classrooms. Specials will push in art, music, library, technology. Physical education will be outside as often as possible. Otherwise, they'll be using either the gym or a push-in in the classroom. Breakfast and lunch, Mr. Burke will give more specifics about that in a little while. I believe that the attempt at Pulaski is to use the cafeteria as often as possible, so we'll get some details about that in a bit. But recess and physical education, as I mentioned, will be outdoors as often as possible. If the weather doesn't allow that, then the students will need to be inside, and they may be in their classrooms or another large space in the building. The students, aside from the 2 days in person, will have 3 days of remote learning. And that will include a daily check-in by their teacher, the teacher that they see on their in-person days. It may be at any point during the day, the teachers will communicate what that schedule looks like, because we are looking to provide coverage to the teachers to give them that time to step away from their students in the classroom so that they can go on to Google Meet and talk to the students and do a check-in and get them answer any questions and talk about the work that they need to do during that day remotely. The assignments at Pulaski for grades 5 and 6 will all be assigned through Google Classroom. So that will be the platform that the students will be accessing to find out what their assignments are, and you can access Google Meets through that way as well. So the other option is a full remote or full virtual model where the students do not come to school in person. We are, based on the information from the survey, we are creating classrooms of students by grade level for virtual or full remote model. And they will have a teacher assigned to them. It may not be the same teacher that they would have if they were in person. So it will be a elementary certified teacher, and that teacher will be doing the recordings of lessons, the assignments of lessons in Google Classroom, as well as regular check-ins throughout the day using Google Meet to support the learning of the students. Families can opt back into the hybrid model of 2 days in person, 3 days remote, or if they're already opting for that and they want to switch to the full virtual model, we are allowing the flexibility there. We understand that every family situation is different. And so we just ask that if you make that request to the building, that you give us a few days, possibly 5 school days, maybe a couple days longer, to make those adjustments so that we can make sure our schedules are moving correctly. So elementary educational services such as AIS reading or math, resource room, and English as a new language services, they will be continued during in-person instruction as well as during remote learning. And our self-contained students in 8-1s, 12-1s, or 15-1 classes, they will attend in person 4 days a week on Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, and Friday. So I know in the spring, the report card looked a little bit different in June. We're looking to start off the 2020-21 school year with our traditional report cards. So the students will get those report cards quarterly. They will have regular grades and comments as they did in prior years. Also, we're looking at attendance, and we need to take attendance for students on a daily basis. When they're in person, that's very easy. So if the student appears in school and the teacher sees them, they can mark them present. So on the remote days, we are expecting the students to log into Google Classroom at least once a day. And as long as they do that check-in, and the teachers may be asking a question in Google Classroom that they need to answer, and that will give them the attendance credit for the day. So they'll be marked present for the day. The work that they do in Google Classroom will count towards their report card grade. So just activity in Google Classroom is equal to attendance, but the effort that they put in and the assignments that they complete will work towards their report card grade. So we mentioned the cohorts earlier. Mr. Burke and Ms. Lonigan are working closely with the K-4 principals and assistant principals to make sure that siblings that are in different buildings across K-6 are in the same cohort. So siblings, brothers and sisters will be in Mondays and Tuesdays together, or Thursdays and Fridays for in-person learning. But we understand there may be circumstances where families don't want them in the same cohort. So please contact the building principals if you do not want them in the same cohort. In grades 7 through 12, that is a rotation. Those students will be in person 2 days, 2 consecutive days out of every 6 days. So being that it's on a rotation basis, if there were no holidays in the course of a few weeks' time, the students may come in on a Monday, Tuesday the first week, then the next week they'd be in on Tuesday, Wednesday, the week after that, Wednesday, Thursday, and so on. So it will be difficult to coordinate the times for brothers and sisters that are in elementary school with their siblings that are in middle school or high school. So something to consider if you have children in the middle school and the high school, and you also have an elementary student and you're concerned about supervision of your child, you may want to have your middle school student and your high school student on 2 different cohorts, because then the likelihood of one of them being home for your elementary student would be more likely. The cohorts in grades 7 through 12, for the most part, are determined alphabetically by last name, A through F in one cohort, G to N in another cohort, O through Z in a third cohort. but there may be some tweaking of that as the principals try to balance classes to keep the class sizes between 12 and 14 in person. That's what we're trying to accomplish in order to keep proper social distancing of the students 6 feet apart in the classrooms. So specific information about your child's teacher, whether it's in person or remote, and the cohort of when they're going to attend, that information will be mailed to you by the principals by the end of next week in our summer mailings. So we have information about mask protocols. Students and staff are all expected to wear masks almost all day long. There are some exceptions to the days when they can take the masks off, but these masks or face coverings must be worn when they're on the bus, when they arrive at school, in the hallways, using the bathroom, in the classroom. If they go to the cafeteria, they're going to keep them on when they're going to pick up their lunch. But once they sit down at the table to eat their lunch, or in the classroom to eat lunch or breakfast or snack, they'll be able to take the mask off once they're seated 6 feet apart from anyone else and they have, and it's time to have a meal. So there will also be 3-minute mask breaks every 30 minutes in addition when the students are sitting in the classroom at least 6 feet apart. So we do ask parents, guardians to send masks in for their children, as well as some additional masks in case a mask gets lost or it gets dirty. You might want to have them have 1 or 2 extras in their backpack every day. And if a student attempts to get on a school bus or enter the building and they forgot their mask, we will provide a mask for them. So we do have a supply of masks to assist with those that forget their mask on any given day. As I mentioned already, health and safety is our #1 priority. So if your child has any symptoms of COVID-19 or fever over 100 degrees, please keep your child home from school. It is recommended that you consult your medical professional medical provider to determine if COVID-19 testing is needed. If a student becomes ill during the school day, the child will be sent home, and again, you will be advised to check with your health provider. The child will not be permitted back to school without a letter from the physician or health provider stating that they are not infected with COVID-19 and that they are safe to return to school activities. We will have isolation rooms in all of the buildings because we recognize that there are some students who may have injured themselves, or they need to take medication, or may need to see a nurse for a situation that's unrelated to the symptoms of COVID-19. So once we know that a student needs to be sent home, they will wait for the parent, guardian, or emergency contact to pick them up from the isolation room. If a student or a staff member tests positive for COVID-19, the testing lab will automatically send the results to the Suffolk County Department of Health. So we do ask families to let us know if your child tests positive for COVID-19 so that we can work with the Suffolk County Department of Health to do the appropriate contact tracing. So that's very important so that we can follow all direction of Department of Health. We're going to get our guidance from them. Anytime there is a case, we'll be reaching out to explain to them the situation, and they will be telling us how we should proceed. All students will have temperature checks with a contactless thermometer every day when they enter the building. We are not doing the temperature checks when the students get on the bus, because once a student arrives at a bus stop, we have to take responsibility for the child. So if we were to give a temperature check at the bus stop and the child had a fever, we would, if the parent wasn't readily there, we would have to take the child to school. So we want to make sure all the children are safe if they're at the bus stop. We pick them up, we bring them to school, then their temperature is checked. If they have a fever, they will be placed in the isolation room, and a parent or guardian or emergency contact will be called. There will be frequent cleaning throughout the school day. Our custodians will be very busy, busier than ever before. They've always done a great job, but we know that this is going to be a heightened responsibility for them, and we thank them for all the work that they'll be doing this school year. They will be doing deeper disinfecting after school and evenings on a daily basis. We have purchased barriers for classrooms for that need small group instruction, as well as social worker, psychologists, when they need to meet with students individually or test students. So students will need to still wear their mask whenever possible, but if they're in closer proximity than the 6 feet to the teacher or the support personnel, the barriers will be in place. And again, the classrooms will have desks all facing the same direction, 6 feet apart, in order to comply with social distancing. But the students will still be wearing the masks when they're in the classroom. So our custodial staff is busy finished cleaning the buildings for the summer, as they do every year, and moving furniture around that needs to be removed from classrooms to maintain the proper social distancing. And then they will be marking up the hallways with directional information to help control traffic flow and promote social distancing. So this picture is from our high school, and here are some more pictures from the high school, just showing markings to show 6 feet spacing, so when the students are in the hallways, and which direction they should be walking in. There'll be signage throughout the building reminding students and staff to maintain 6 feet of social distancing and to wear their masks. Computer devices, we've loaned many out over the spring, and those families most likely still have them in their possession. We ask you to keep those devices until we notify you to have the child bring them in, or for you to drop them off. Chromebooks will be for all students in grades 3 through 12, and iPads in grades K through 2. So if you need a device and you didn't indicate it on the survey, please reach out to the building and let them know. We have ordered additional devices, and we will be distributing those as well. And the one silver lining here with technology is the urgent need to have devices. We've put ourselves on a path to be much closer to having a one-to-one device initiative for all of the students in the district. So we anticipate with the next school year, 2021-22, that students will, and hopefully at that point will be normal instruction 5 days a week in person, and every student should have a device that they will be able to bring back and forth between home and school, so they can support their learning while they're at home, and also support their learning while they're in school. And our teachers have done a fabulous job learning about many different technology platforms and software programs, and I know that they're excited to embed them into the learning for the students. So that is a silver lining, is our one-to-one device initiative. So at this point, I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Burke and Ms. Lonergan, but if you have questions, you could start entering them. Click on the Q&A button at the bottom of the screen. Again, that's for a laptop, desktop, or cell phone. And for iPads, the button is at the top of the screen, and you type your question in, and we'll go through the responses in a little while. But again, Mr. Burke may answer some other questions that you may have. So Mr. Burke.
Yes, so I'd like to start by just saying thank you. Thank you, Ms. Tona, Mr. Schneider, Dr. Kerner, Mr. Colhane, Ryan Yacobelis, Dr. Casamassa, Ms. Stevenson. This platform is awesome, and I really appreciate this, and the community appreciates it, and the amount of time and energy that you guys have tirelessly put into numerous reentry meetings, I really appreciate, and I just want to say thank you for that. I also, before I begin, want to take the opportunity and say thank you to our chief custodian, Joe Jasinski, Kevin, as well as John and Nicole and Josh. Those guys have been doing unbelievable work. So we've been taking the guidance from all of our directors, and to create an environment that we're ready to open, we have a lot of things that were necessary within the classroom, walking through with our director of facilities and measuring out desks that are 6 feet apart, literally breaking down each classroom, taking tables out and taking shelves out and bookshelves just to have enough square footage so we can fit up to 14, at most 15 desks per classroom. Going through the hallways and doing my walkthrough with Mr. Colhane, Director of Security, measuring the hallways with Joe Jasinski. We will be following exactly what occurred, what you saw from the high school with directional arrows. So making the hallways distant and safe. Just today, we established sanitation stations. Joe and the custodial staff was placing new hand sanitizer stations throughout the building in the cafeteria. So, you know, it's just a matter of getting the building ready, ready to open. So lunch was mentioned, and it is true. Pulaski Street, we are going to be sending students to the cafeteria. We had to accommodate that on two ways. First, we created a brand new master schedule that included 3 lunch periods as opposed to the former 2 lunch periods. With that said, and the vision of taking our population, cutting it in half with a cohort 1, cohort 2, we have half the population. We are going to, and just picture this, for your child to eat lunch in the cafeteria, there will be 3 students per table. And in the past, we would have an entire class able to sit at one table. So just understand just the amount of space we need. So we can only sit 40 students in the cafeteria. When we do our lunches, we'll have a maximum of 70 students. So 30 will be in the auditorium, and we've spaced it out the same with tables in the auditorium. So we will have that opportunity for students that can go to lunch. During that time, the teachers have their opportunity to go to lunch. Recess. Recess is a discussion still underway. This morning's meeting, we had one mindset, but after further discussion, we're trying to figure out how to accomplish 6 isolated areas out on the playground that are designated for each class. We have to make sure that we don't commingle the students, but at the same time, each of these destination points have to adhere to the social distancing. I did speak with Arlene Darkowski today, trying to find out our number of lunch monitors, security guards, and both Ms. Lonergan and myself will be present in every lunchroom. But we have to make sure that we have somebody at each location for that adherence to the distancing. We will be having specials. We have in this building, we have technology, library, art, and music. They will be on wheels. They'll be visiting the classrooms. Thankfully, and we're very appreciative of the fact that we will still continue to have our science opportunity for our lab, but we're creative with this because it's a little bit of a reduced position. The teacher will do a 20-minute pop-in for 2 classes during one period, offering the science lab, setting the students up, checking, connecting, and then going class to class. So we're pleased that we still have that opportunity. All services, AIS, ENL, as stated by Ms. Tona, that will be the following a push-in or pull-out model. We will make sure that these rooms are cleaned and disinfected after each of the groups that have received the services leave. Partitions will be also available in those rooms, but they will be small groups. Phys ed. Phys ed will adhere to the 12 feet social distancing with the PPE mask. This will be something that we are really making sure that phys ed is not going to have vigorous activities of heavy breathing. There is going to be, that will include heavy breathing. They are going to offer, and I am trying to get a smart board or some other device that's on wheels. We actually have one in the building that we'll be able to utilize, but we think it's important, and I know everyone else does, but you know, we want our students to be able to move around as much as possible. So if a teacher co-teaches, the teacher will move class to class as opposed to the students moving. But we will try to offer as much movement in passing. We're going to stagger. This is still under discussion with the committee on how we do our dismissals, but we are talking about staggering times. We have opened 2 doors as opposed to the traditional 1 door of entry. Students will be coming in. Teachers will have their own entry. There will be a temperature check system, and Mr. Culhane can probably address and talk more to that at the entry point for teachers. on the buses, because Pulaski is a little unique in that when the buses arrive, they do not depart from the buses until 7:55. Up until that time, as buses arrive, security, if I understood the director of security correctly, security will be going on to each bus doing a temperature check before the students arrive into the building. So we will have 2 points of entry. So at the beginning point, students will be staggered and coming in, so they're spaced correctly. And then at the second entry point, which will be the back of the gym, that will also provide them that spacing and that entry. Walkers. So we have in the morning at Pulaski Street, we have students that arrive a little early. We will have the auditorium set up. On the back of the chairs, there will be like Post-its or dots indicating where students can sit that are socially distanced. We also have the floor marked, and we will have the tables up on the stage as well, should we need to accommodate. But we will have plenty of room for our walkers when they arrive. Again, at the front of the building, we will have temperature checks. We will have both physical hand temperature checks by security, as well as the opportunity for the device that I'm hoping Mr. Colhane can speak to. So at this point, we are thrilled. We're excited. We're all so busy, you know, getting this building ready to go. Cohorts is going to happen. We're working on it. As you have to understand, and Ms. Tona did speak to it a little bit, Pulaski has to marry my cohort list with the K-4 buildings. If you have a sibling that is in another building, that is the first priority for the cohort list. So there's a couple considerations, siblings first. Parent requests, we've been receiving a number, and we're grateful for that. So we are trying to make sure that that's the second, where we will be placing students in the cohort based on parent. And then the third thing for my cohorts is just waiting for the return from K-4 buildings to populate their information. But literally, I received one tonight, so I'm super excited so we can start utilizing what Mr. Miltenberg had sent me. So with that said, Ms. Lonergan, if you'd like to say a few words, you know, we're grateful. We're super excited. We're only sad that we couldn't offer that fifth graders that, you know, that check-in where they could come in and see the building, and they never had the chance to even be in the building last year. So we will be putting together a video, just kind of walking through like we did at the end of March, where we, you know, gave you a virtual tour. So we will do that again, but we just can't wait for everybody to show up and return to a normal, as normal can be right now. But we're ready, and please call, email, anything you need that you don't hear tonight, reach out to us and we'll get back to you right away. Ms. Lonergan, would you like to say a few words?
Sure. I think you pretty much covered everything. I'm so excited to meet everybody and to welcome everybody into the Pulaski family. Our incoming fifth graders, and to see our former fifth graders now as sixth graders. And we know it's not under ideal circumstances, but this too shall pass. And we're looking forward to seeing everybody.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Burke and Ms. Lonergan. At this point, we'll ask Ms. Stevenson to start reading the questions that have been posed to us, and we'll all jump in and help you out with the responses.
All right, so our first question is, if my child goes virtual, how long before he or she can re-enter school?
If you want to make the change to the hybrid model, we just ask that you contact Mr. Burke or Ms. Lonergan and give them about a week, and they should be able to make that accommodation. It could be less, it could be a couple of days more, but we understand that families may need to switch between the hybrid and the full remote option.
If my child has a history of asthma, what is the protocol with the mask?
We would ask for medical documentation that says that that your child, the doctor feels that a mask is not the best protocol for your child. So we need medical documentation to assist with that. You could send that right up to the building.
And just add to that, the parent may also want to consider maybe a face shield, which will allow a much easier breathing but again, only if the doctor approves it.
We do have one attendee who said they're sorry they missed the beginning, but his nephew is starting at Pulaski. Can we explain what a cohort is?
A cohort is a group of students, sorry, Mr. Burke,
That's okay.
a group of students that will either attend in person on Monday and Tuesday, or the other cohort will attend on Thursday and Friday.
Will Orchestra still be running, and will it be available for students who are attending school via the full remote option?
Hello, everybody. Nice to see you all. Yes, we're going to be starting the orchestra lessons and the band lessons late September, early October. That's the plan. And then moving forward, as we reevaluate the situation as we continue through the school year, the hope is that we will be able to get into some sort of smaller ensemble setting that would normally exist during the school year. There'll also be some opportunities for virtual support as well throughout the entire year.
Thank you, Mr. Rockcamp. Mr. Rockcamp is our Director of Fine Arts, because I didn't get to introduce him in the beginning. Thanks for being here.
Sorry, I came on a little late. I'm sorry.
Thanks for being here. We're happy to have you.
No problem. Thank you.
All right. When will we find out about teacher assignments and the supplies that are required?
So teacher assignments should go out next week by Friday, the latest. We're hoping we can be wrapped up with our cohort designations. That's what we're really trying to focus on. But classes and assignments are done. We have received teachers' supply lists that we'll be attaching and sending those letters home.
We have a question about lunch and also about gym, but they were posted before Mr. Burke explained how they would be handled. So I think those questions are answered already. So we're going to go on to, will there be monitors in the bathrooms to limit the numbers of students entering? And is it possible to obtain touchless paper towel dispensers instead of having air dryers?
So I will address the touchless paper towel dispensers. They were installed today. Joe was going around and you know, putting them in. And the first question, what was the first part, please?
Will there be monitors in the bathrooms to limit the number of students entering?
So at this point, Pulaski, we will not be having monitors, and maybe someone wants to speak to that, but I will say this, there will be a protocol and a request that teachers do send, you know, one student at a time. We have security guards that will be in the hallways. You know, myself and Ms. Lonigan are going to be present, so we will constantly have an eye and be vigilant as to who's in the bathroom or how many people are in the bathroom, but you know, given what we have, if I have, and I know in the beginning of the day, I'll have a number of teachers that I'll be able to ask to at least be circulating and being in the hallway. So that's how we're going to handle it.
And something else to remember, these are 5th and 6th grade students that I'm sure Mr. Burke and Ms. Lonigan are going to have conversations with the students, and the teachers can reinforce that in the classroom about if you go to the bathroom and you head into the bathroom and there is a couple of people in there, wait outside the door until somebody leaves, so that they can maintain a smaller number of students in the bathrooms at one time. And our custodial staff will be spending more frequent trips into cleaning the bathrooms as well. So we know that that's a high traffic area, so we want to make sure that's safe for students.
And if I could just add to what Mr. Burke said, we're moving to the touchless paper towel dispensers throughout the district, not just at Pulaski. It's a district-wide changeover.
Thank you, Mr. Jacobalis.
Are desks 6 feet apart from the edge of the desk in all classrooms?
A lot of questions about this coming up today. Yes, they are 6 feet apart from the edge, not on center as some neighboring districts might have measured. We measured from the edge.
And if I can just add to that, some classes can only fit 13, so that does impact the class size. So we had to make some adjustments. We can't have 15 or 14, so class size and square footage did make us adjust some classes.
This participant would like to know if the students will need to wear a face mask during recess.
They will adhere to the same requirements for phys ed. So if they are going out and we are able to secure 6 designated areas and we can, the answer is yes. And Mr. Culhane, unless you want to add to that.
Yeah, if they're outside and they're spaced 12 feet apart, they can remove their masks at the discretion of the phys ed teacher. If they can't maintain that distance, they're going to have to wear their mask as per the state regulations. Anybody within 6 feet of each other must wear a mask. Just keep in mind, folks, too, also that the phys ed program has changed dramatically, so that there's not a lot of physical exertion where there's going to be a lot of heavy breathing and perspiring. So they've tailored the activities to kind of tone down that rigorous phys ed curriculum to something a little more less physical, so there won't be as much aspiration and or sweating.
How is co-teaching going to work? Will students be switching?
No, the teachers will be switching. Co-teachers are in close proximity right next to each other, so the teachers will switch.
Will bus ride times be increased, and how will students be spaced on the bus?
I'll be happy to take that one. We are arranging our buses so that there's no more than 21 or 22 kids on a bus, so that each student has a seat to themselves. So depending on how many rows the bus has, determines whether there's 21 or 22 kids on a bus. With this exception, if students in the same household are riding the same bus, we're going to have those students sit together on the seat, and thus we can put several more students on the bus. The runtime shouldn't increase. In fact, they probably will decrease a little bit because we're picking up fewer students. There's going to be an adjustment period in the beginning as we determine exactly how many kids are riding the bus, which days, whether some students are not riding the bus at all. So it will move a little bit in the beginning. Parents are going to be notified about bus routes through information from our automated dialer call, automated phone calls that are specific for each student, and also through the parent portal.
We can just add to that. It's incumbent upon all of our parents to please make sure all your contact numbers are up to date, cell phones or home phones. As we run into that problem quite often last year, the numbers we had on file are not accurate or they've changed. So please, it's our only way to get a hold of you besides email, and we'd like to have accurate numbers so we can get the messages out to everybody in an accurate, timely fashion.
Right. And just as a further follow-up to that, it's worth mentioning, students will be required to wear masks on the bus at all times. We're allowing students to have the windows open on the bus to increase ventilation when the weather allows it, but masks are mandatory on the bus. Our drivers will have disposable masks to give to students if they come to the bus stop without their mask, but all students will have to wear their masks for the entire time that they're on the bus. And that kind of leads us into the next question, I think, Ms. Stevenson, that you're asking, that you have up there.
Sorry,
If a student tests positive for COVID?
Yes, I'm not sure what happened to that. Oh, there it is. I see it. So if a student tests positive for COVID-19 and rides the bus, not only does the entire class quarantine along with the teacher, but the students that are on the bus as well?
Yes, that is correct. If a student tests positive, any close contacts of the students may be subject to quarantine. And again, this is in concurrence and conferral with the Department of Health. So if we pick up on it early enough, it'd just be the bus. If he continues on into the class before it's discovered or his test hasn't come in yet, yes, it's possible the entire class and teacher may have to be quarantined. Let me be clear, though, that a close contact is clearly defined by the Department of Health as being within 6 feet and for a period of at least 10 minutes. So casual contact is when you're walking past somebody that may be infected. You're just what they call a person under suspicion, if you will. But a close contact has to be, so anybody on that bus absolutely can be subject to a quarantine. The class, it all depends on the contact tracing and how the Department of Health guides us.
Will hand sanitizer be available in the classrooms and lunchrooms, and/or will students be permitted to bring their own?
So Ryan, you can answer that. I'll say I know that yes in the lunchroom, yes in the hallways, multiple hand sanitizer stations, classroom is going to be a yes, but Ryan, I think you have insight on bringing their own.
Yes. As Mr. Burke said, there will be hand sanitizer stations throughout the building, in the cafeteria, outside the bathrooms, not one in every classroom, but near every classroom. You are allowed to bring hand sanitizer into the school building if you choose to do so. However, it cannot be transported on the bus. You cannot have alcohol-based hand sanitizer on the bus. That is a Department of Transportation regulation. It's not a district policy, and that's been the law for a number of years.
My daughter's in a 1211 special ed. She has pull-out into mainstream general ed classes. I see that the school is accommodating special education 4 days a week. Will my daughter still be pulled out of her special ed class to join in the mainstream class?
Yes, that's still occurring. And besides the opportunity for your daughter, for all of the 1511 special ed classes, 811, we will have some integration with our specials as well. Again, adhering to the distancing and the requirements.
Will there be a morning care program available anymore? Do you know the status of whether Rascals after school care is available on in-person days?
So I'm not aware of Pulaski having a morning care opportunity. Mr. Schneider may speak more to the aftercare Rascals.
Sure. All right. So in the past, for morning care at Pulaski, it's been more of an informal gathering of students in the lobby. Obviously, that's not going to work this year. Mr. Burke, I believe you had mentioned to me that you have set up space in the auditorium that students who arrive at school before the opening of the school day will be spaced out in the auditorium. That's correct?
That is correct.
Okay. The Rascals program is an aftercare program run by a private organization called Rascals. They are still working out exactly how that's going to work for aftercare. I would encourage parents who have students at Pulaski who are interested in Rascals to contact Carol Kirchhoff or whoever is their normal contact in the Rascals program to determine exactly how that would work. I know Rascals is trying to take a measure of how many students in each building are interested in its services. So I please, if parents are interested in the aftercare Rascals program, please contact Mrs. Kirchhoff or one of her associates as soon as possible.
Will middle school and Pulaski students be on the same morning bus?
The answer is yes. The
Yeah.
buses for Pulaski and middle school will continue to be twinned in the morning, yes.
Are arrival and dismissal times the same?
Yes.
My question is about the attendance policy on remote days. Because of parents working, if the child doesn't log into the Google Classroom or Seesaw until about 6 p.m., would they be counted as absent because it is outside of the school day?
No, as long as they log in at some point during the day, they'll be marked present.
Will we be able to correspond with teachers through Class Dojo? That was very helpful.
Yes, Class Dojo is one of the multiple communicative tools that we use, and I agree that Ms. Lonergan and the teachers have been using Dojo for a number of years, so we will absolutely continue besides our newsletters and Connect Ed calls and emails, so yes.
We were already over capacity last year. How were we able to only have 2 cohorts with the amount of students we have in the building?
It has to do with the number of students in a classroom and the number of desks we can fit in the classroom and still be socially distant. So our custodial staff and the building administrators and Mr. Culhane, they have spent a lot of time this summer going through each and every classroom, determining what the capacity is for each classroom. And now the principals are looking at the results of the survey and putting the students into cohorts in the classroom so that everyone is socially distanced appropriately, based on the maximum number of seats that fit in that room.
If a parent needs to switch cohorts, will they have the same teacher?
If it's a choice between the Monday, Tuesday and the Thursday, Friday, they should be able to. I know Mr. Burke is balancing classes, so.
Yes, I believe that would be possible. Yes.
Will there be early morning orchestra?
The goal is to eventually get to a point where we can get groups, kids together if social distancing or, the space or the area provides it. But that's something we'll have to see how things proceed, how the situation proceeds. Like I said, we'll be getting going with the lessons during the day by late September, early October, hopefully, and then we'll constantly be reevaluating the situation.
And then another question for you, Mr. Rockamp. Will students be able to start an instrument and have lessons?
Yes, if you're a child or you didn't, or as a parent, if you didn't get the opportunity to select an instrument yet and you're coming into 5th grade, there will be another round of recruitment. So no need to worry about that. The music teachers will be reaching out again to do another round of recruitment during the month of September.
Was it mentioned whether students can purchase lunch or do they need to bring their own lunch?
Well, there's no purchasing lunch at Pulaski because breakfast lunch is provided to all students for free at no cost, regardless of their family's ability to pay, because the building is on the community eligible provision program. So obviously students can bring their own lunch and breakfast if they wish, but food is available in the cafeteria for all students at no cost to them or their families.
Will students have access to Google Classroom before the first day of school?
If they have access, they won't see anything in the Google Classroom. It's probably the same login that they used last year to just get into Google Classroom, but the teachers need to set up the codes and roster the students in order for the students to have access.
What role will psychologists and social workers play in social and emotional well-being for all students?
So they'll be very impactful with coming back to school, opening. Besides being there for specific needs, they will be part of our PBIS. They'll be part of our social emotional team going into classrooms with myself and Ms. Lonigan, welcoming the students, making themselves available. We have 2 social workers right now, and I can tell you the work that they do and what they have done in the past. I'm more than confident that all of us and them as a team will be readily available for all of the students' needs.
What happens if I do not want to send my daughter in person to school?
You can choose the full remote option if you don't want to use the hybrid model, which allows for 2 days in person. Please contact Mr. Burke or Ms. Lonigan, and if you didn't answer that on the survey, they'll be happy to make that accommodation for you.
How is the busing staff going to maintain distance between children and kids keeping hands to themselves?
So, the answer to that question is largely similar to the rules that were in place last year. Students are going to have to stay in their seats while the bus is moving. Students have always had to keep their hands to themselves on the bus. When there's a violation of that rule, the drivers are going to speak with the students, remind them of the rules in place, but then work through the transportation department to refer student behavior to Mr. Burke, Ms. Lonergan for follow-up by the buildings. For the interest of everybody's health, we are going to have very strict enforcement of the rules here to make sure students are maintaining their distance. And I know that Mr. Burke and Ms. Lonergan and all the other teachers at Pulaski are going to be able to partner with us in making that happen.
There's a question, will there be a virtual 5th grade orientation? But I think you guys answered that already, that there'll be a video. Will concerts take place? Could they be live streamed during the day?
The live stream option during the day is something that we're going to look into moving forward through into the school year. It would be a great option if it works out. We have to really assess the progress that the students make, given this very unique circumstance. And like I said, this will be something that we are going to constantly revisit and reevaluate as the year goes on. And it's hopeful that we'll be able to do something to celebrate our music students, at some point throughout the year.
How will student teachers and observers be handled and service providers that enter the building?
Everybody and anybody, whether they are a contractor, employee, or a visitor, will be temperature checked before they enter the building, as well as have their ID scanned through our normal processes. If a student, if a parent or somebody needs to speak with a teacher, appointments must be made. You can't just show up and demand to see somebody. We're asking for everybody's cooperation on this because we're limited in the areas that we can bring a person in to meet with a faculty member. Not to mention that the faculty members' days are completely filled with this, with our pandemic planning, if you will. So your cooperation is greatly appreciated.
For walkers that are being driven, should the parent wait in the car until we see the child entering the building, meaning that they are cleared to enter?
So we're actually working on a plan. I have taken a very close look at what Ms. Rogers offers. So we don't have a real system in place as of yet on pickup. I can say this, we will have a guard and or an administrator. We will have radios when the walkers are released. They're at the front of the building or they'll be held in the auditorium. I would say if I was outside, I would radio and indicate the student's name. They would say the student and then the student would go outside. That's what we have done, but we're going to develop this a little bit further.
I think what the parent was asking is in the morning when they're dropped off.
Yeah, it's about drop off.
Yeah, that's completely up to the parent. As I stated earlier, we're all trying to be responsible for the health and safety of our own children and everybody else's children and the faculty and staff. If there's any doubt in your mind that your child may not pass muster at the door with a temperature check, it might be prudent not to bring that child to school. If you choose to wait to see if your child has been admitted into the building, we would ask that maybe you pull around so that the next person can pull into the driveway to drop off their children safely and we don't back up out onto Griffin Avenue.
What will happen if a parent sends their child on the wrong day and they cannot be reached?
Well, we will keep the child in the building, but we will continue to make contact with the parent, guardian, and emergency contacts. As Mr. Culhane mentioned earlier, it's important that all of your telephone numbers are up to date. You can, I believe they can update them directly in the portal. Otherwise, please contact the building and someone will assist you in making sure that we have up-to-date phone numbers.
Will water bottles be available in case students forget theirs since the water fountains will be shut off?
Mr. Schneider, we don't provide water bottles.
They are for sale in the cafeteria if students want to purchase them. The meals are free, but extras like water bottles or cookies or a la carte items like snacks pay for with cash or money on account.
What time can kids enter the building? What time is the school day?
7:55, we dismiss students off the bus, and it's over at 2:40. We start dismissal. So students, as stated earlier, some walkers arrive a little earlier than that time, and we do hold them, and we'll have space available for them.
Do you want to, Mr. Burke, to just elaborate? What's the earliest time they can enter the building?
They are not. At 8 o'clock, students are to enter their classrooms. So if a student does enter the building at 7:30 or 7:40 or 7:50, they will be seated in the auditorium. no student is allowed to enter the building and then just walk around freely. We hold the students until 7:55.
But we would ask the parents to please cooperate and try not to drop them off too early because space is limited where we can supervise the children before the classes start. So if there's we understand that there's work constraints and so forth, but please try to cooperate with us a little bit because we are limited in space so that we can supervise the children when they do come in early. There's only so many kids that we can fit into the auditorium. Thank you.
Will there be guidelines in the student handbooks for students that engage in COVID-related bullying, such as mask taking or deliberate coughing on students?
Yes, our code of conduct has been upgraded to specifically address some COVID-related issues, but the regular code of conduct is still in effect. So any type of bullying, whether it's cyber, COVID-related, physical, verbal, mental abuse, or bullying is not tolerated, as always not been tolerated in our code of conduct.
How will fifth graders be eased into the day on day one in person? None of them know where to go or what to do.
Well, we have created a virtual video that we had put out once before. This second virtual video tour of the building is going to focus on the first day, what it looks like, if you're getting off the bus. So we will literally try to walk through each of the things expected for the fifth graders. We'll be putting a Connect Ed call out to the incoming fifth grade families as well, just to them with information on the release of the video, and do all that we can to ease this transition for them because, leaving the K4 coming into Pulaski is a big move. But I can tell you, and this, Ms. Stevenson, every teacher is going to be out there with a smile. Everyone's going to be so happy to see these students, and they'll receive the warmest welcome. We have some phenomenal families in this community that are willing to decorate the front of the building and really step up and try to make this just a magical place as best as we can. So we're going to do all that we can to make sure that first day is special.
If my child is in Group B and does not start in-person learning on the first day of school, are they expected to log in on the first day or do they wait for their first in-person day?
All of the students elementary will be in on that first week. So September 3rd is the first day for the Monday, Tuesday cohort group, and Friday, September 4th is the first day for the Thursday, Friday cohort group. But there will be information sent home prior so that students can log in on as of day one for remote learning.
If there's one case of COVID-19 in the individual building, will the entire school close or will certain staff and students isolate outside of the school?
Did we lose Mr. Colhane?
No, I'm not. I think we've kind of covered.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Okay.
Do you want me to repeat that?
Nope, I can read it. All right, if there's a confirmed case, once again, we're going to get notified by the Suffolk County Department of Health, depending on how the testing was done. If it was done through a lab, they're going to know first before we do, unless, of course, the parent notifies us. If it's a rapid test, we're going to depend on the parent or the guardian to please notify us immediately so that we can notify the Department of Health and get the contact tracing protocols in place and safeguard the rest of the students and or staff or faculty that may have come in contact with that child. Does it mean that we're automatically going to quarantine the school or shut down an entire school? No. We are going to be guided by the protocols and the procedures and the direction of the Suffolk County Department of Health at that juncture.
I requested that my two children be in different cohorts on the survey. They are both in different schools. Do I still need to email the principals to let them know that I want my children in different cohorts? Are they making the cohort placements based on the information submitted in the survey, or was that strictly informational?
They're making the decisions based on the information in the survey. So that should be sufficient.
But it's okay if you want to follow up with an email to the principals.
When will students have opportunities to socialize with their friends?
Well, We will, like I said, we'll do all that we can by offering lunch in the cafeteria, although they will be sitting at the 3 feet apart. Gym classes, it'll be limited, but it'll be a lot better, or it'll offer more opportunities if they're in the building. And again, the restrictions that we have on this type of socialization is, you know, CDC and health department. So we'll do the best we can. We are, you know, offering mobility through the hallways, gym classes, and lunch and recess. But again, recess will be still worked on in designated areas.
And
Well,
just to
they'll still be able to talk, you know.
Yes.
Lunchtime, they'll be able to talk. They'll be 6 feet apart, but they'll be facing catty corner from each other at their lunch tables. And at gym, they'll be able to talk and scream and run and play. So there'll be plenty of time for socialization, and whatever the teachers allow in their classroom, there may be conversations that are had or discussions, I'm sure.
Any meds that need to be given during the school day?
The same protocols that would take place during regular instruction will take place. So if there's medication that your child needs, contact the building and make an arrangement with the school nurse. Once, I think at this point, speak to Mr. Burke and Ms. Lonigan. The nurses aren't in the buildings at this point, but whatever schedule the student needs to be on, they'll go down to the nurse's office to pick up their medication.
There's a question about the health screenings and how that's going to be handled. I think Mr. Culhane. How will the health screenings be handled?
The health screenings, the families will be getting a automated robocall every Sunday, and they'll be prompted to answer 4 questions. Based on the answers, if there's a yes answer, it'll prompt you to follow some other directions. I will also be looked at those in the morning to make sure that we followed the protocols as set forth on the robocall. So that'll be every Sunday, because we're required to periodically send out that questionnaire. Rather than dealing with paper, we're automating it.
Will there be consequences if someone lies on the health screening form?
The consequences are when you're putting your own child at risk, as well as the children in their classes and the faculty and staff. So I don't believe that anybody's going to take that opportunity to lie or to falsify or give us bogus information, because the consequences are just too great. I believe that all of our community are responsible family members and adults, and will do their best to keep everyone safe, not only their child, but everyone's child.
We have someone who apologizes for having come on late, but they were asking about how the temperatures are going to be taken when the kids get on. They're asking about the temperatures being taken on the bus, but.
All right, well, the bus is just one of the ways. We're going to look at a number of avenues. We're trying to expedite getting the children into the schools. Unfortunately, at the high school, we don't have the luxury. We have to empty the buses as quickly as possible because they have to do elementary runs. But at Pulaski, they're at the kind of at the end of the run, so we have a little more time. So we're going to try taking the temperatures at the doors. The security guards will be doing this. And we're also going to try doing it on the buses to see if it expedites that process of getting the children into the schools. We'll be using a device such as this. It's a touchless thermometer, which is held about 6 to 8 inches from the child's forehead, and it'll give us an immediate answer whether they have a fever or not. If they have a fever, they will be asked they'll be escorted to a separate room adjacent to the nurse's office, just to be further assessed, not to single them out or anything. They'll just be further assessed, because we all know fevers can occur from an earache, a toothache, or something that's non-COVID related, and the nurses will make that assessment. If they feel that it's a COVID-related illness or an illness that requires that the child be sent home, they'll make that phone call.
Does my child need a textbook to support virtual instruction?
So, Dr. Casamassa, if you want to talk to that with regards to textbooks to support some of the learning, maybe the iReady.
We're still in the process of looking at the print text and the ebooks, but print, you might not need a textbook, because if you're doing virtual instruction, you're on a computer, and we do have a lot of access to a lot of ebooks. We have News ELA, we have Learning A to Z, which are virtual texts. So we will have print books in the classroom, is that correct? But we have to quarantine them, am I saying that correctly?
Yep.
Yeah, so if you're doing virtual instruction, you know, as far as ELA is concerned, you probably will be doing most of your work on the computer with ebooks. And if you need print text, or what might happen is you would get articles that you might have to print, and, you know, other than text. So we're still working on that. The teachers are still working on exactly what resources they're using, but whatever you need, if you're using virtual instruction, you will have it. Anyone else can add to that if there's other things.
I agree with you, Dr. Casamassa, and I think that the community should know that something that we've been speaking to our teachers about, especially K through 6, is interdisciplinary units of study, so that when they're home on their virtual days, they're not necessarily on the computer, if you will. They're doing some real world learning activities and other things to expand upon the knowledge and the content that they're learning in the classroom. So.
Okay, can parents opt their child out of mask breaks, and who would they send a note to?
So I just wanted to, let me say this. The committees that were set up these were very hard decisions to come up with, and these rules and procedures that we have been asked to come up with. The committees that were formed were not just district employees, staff, or faculty. We had community members and parents involved. And the whole issue with the masks, which I know is a hot button issue, decision that everyone wears a mask at all times in a school or any of the district offices was not an easy decision to come to. But in light of the severity of this disease, this pandemic that we're facing, we felt as a committee that it was in the best interest of everyone involved, every single child that goes to our schools, every single person that works for the district, and every visitor that enters into our facilities, that their health is of the most paramount importance. So to opt out of wearing a mask other than for a medical condition, a parent cannot do that. We would request that you seek a physician's advice, and then that would be handled on a case-by-case basis.
I think this question was opting out of the mask break. So that would be a communication with the parent and the child, because the teachers are going to stop every 30 minutes and tell the children, okay, everyone's 6 feet apart. You can take your masks off. We're going to time it for 3 minutes. If you don't want your child to take the mask off, certainly let the teacher know, but definitely have a conversation with the child, because the teacher's going to be supervising all the students at the same time, and if that's your wishes that they don't have the mask break, it really needs to be a partnership between the teacher, the parent, and the student.
Can students have water bottles at their desks?
Mr. Burke? You're muted, Mr. Burke.
Sorry. I honestly don't know the answer to that. I know, does anyone else have information on that?
Well, I don't know what your policy was in your building. We do not, and in most of the buildings, I don't believe, have a problem with them having a water bottle at their desk, as long as it doesn't become an excuse to constantly remove the mask. We understand that, you know, some children, I know myself, I just finished a water bottle. You know, it's okay to take a sip, but it cannot become the norm so that we can constantly take off our masks. So we have to keep that in mind. There's a delicate balance, and I would depend on the teachers to maintain their decorum in their classrooms and to make sure that this doesn't get abused as privilege.
How and where will student materials and toolboxes be stored on the off days? Students will be sharing desks with students in the other cohort.
So we're asking that in the letter that's going to be sent home, we're asking that your child come in with like a pencil pen pouch or a box. No materials or supplies will be left in the desk. Yeah, in the evening, security, custodial staff will be disinfecting the insides of the desks and the outside of the desks. So we are asking that if your child has the pens, pencils, erasers, sharpeners, that be brought in and out of the classroom as they come in.
Mr. Rotkamp, did you want to add something to that?
I'm sorry, what was the question? I'm sorry, I missed what you just said.
There was just a note on the question that you wanted to answer the question about the materials. Was that an error?
I don't think did I
Oh,
say
okay.
it? That might have been an accident, I'm sorry.
Okay, no problem. Was the HVAC system in the schools updated to reflect CDC protocol?
So the HVAC systems in all the schools were updated in our most previous bond work. Currently, we're adapting the CDC guidelines by increasing the amount of airflow into the rooms, where typically we're mandated by state education department to have 15% fresh air drawn into the room. In some instances, we'll push it as high as 40% if the system will bear it. So we're going to increase the amount of fresh air coming into the schools during the winter through our heating system.
I work for a school, so my daughter will attend 2 days of school and 3 days of remote learning. How can this work for parents who are working and have no siblings to watch my child?
Now, we understand the situation that you're in. Unfortunately, the school district is not able to provide childcare on the days that the students are not in person. We apologize. We know that there are some organizations that may have openings for childcare. And if you want to email us, we'll be happy to see if we can assist you in finding some.
If we indicated that we wanted full remote learning, will that be on our teacher assignment so we know it was accepted?
Mr. Burke, will that be part of the letter that'll go home next week in the mailing?
Yes, what we'll do is currently we have 120 names of students that are indicating that. So we will be in the process of creating classes and we will indicate that in the letter, yes.
There was a question of who will have access to the health data in the surveys?
Myself and my assistant, and the questions, just so that everybody's put at ease, are very innocuous. The questions are, I think the most health-related question is, have you had a temperature of more than 100 degrees in the last 72 hours? And then had you traveled to another state that is on the COVID restricted list? Or have you had contact with anybody recently that has had COVID? Very innocuous, nothing that would be HIPAA related. Not that that is going to be publicized. Those documents will be kept in a secure location. Those are just strictly for screening purposes.
Will buses keep windows open?
Yes, to increase circulation, just as long as it's weather permitting.
Instead of masks, can my children have face shields?
They need to have a face mask and then they can have an additional shield. Only students, as Mr. Culhane mentioned before, if they have a medical condition and they provide us documentation, would the mask be excused from those students, and then we would encourage a face shield instead.
How will drop-off and pickup be run, as it seems many more students will not be taking the bus? And I think we've already answered that one.
Right, but I'll be sure to also include that in the letter that goes home, more specific as to how we can streamline that and the program we're going to take to make sure that works.
All right, there are a couple of people that asked about that, so.
Okay.
Okay. Can we donate water, especially at the beginning of the year? It may be hot and kids may not have the money to purchase.
We're always happy for all donations, but before people go out and purchase water to donate, I'd like the opportunity to have a conversation with our cafeteria director, Keith Graham, to make sure that there are no restrictions that I can't think of, that I'm not thinking of at the moment sitting here. If the person who sent in that comment wants to give me a call tomorrow at 369-6711, I will have the answer by tomorrow at noon, and I'll be able to talk with that person. And then, Mr. Burke, you can publicize that answer to your parent community, if you don't mind.
How will emotional support be rolled out as children are impacted by this plan is not going well? I'm speaking as a mental health counselor in the field.
So as part of the reopening plan, the district is outlining procedures to address the mental health, behavior, and emotional needs of our students, our faculty and staff, once school reopens and in person. So we are still outlining procedures on that.
Will additional Google Classroom training be provided to both parents and students?
We will be setting up some parent workshops in September to assist parents in the transition. The students as well, if they need that assistance, if they're on full remote, we'll be sure to provide that training for students and for parents.
Will there be an open house this year?
All of the open houses will be virtual. We cannot accommodate all of the people to come into the buildings, unfortunately. So I know that they're all scheduled for September and October across the district. So we did make the decision that they'll all be virtual.
If a student or a staff member tests positive for an illness that produces COVID symptoms, for example, strep throat, do they need to produce a negative COVID test in addition to a positive strep or flu test?
The answer is no, they don't have to produce a negative. As long as their physician indicates that the illness is the flu or strep as indicated here or some other cause of the fever, that's fine. Obviously, if they have strep or the flu, they shouldn't be coming to school anyway. Thank you.
Where and when can parents pick up Chromebooks?
We'll be getting information out to families once the school year starts. We're not going to be ready for distribution until the first week of September.
Will there be parent conferences?
Parent conferences right now are scheduled for December. Should we be back to full instruction, then we could have in-person parent conferences, but otherwise we will have virtual parent conferences. But either way, the parent conferences will still take place.
Can cloth masks be worn or does it have to be a disposable face mask?
It could be either. Cloth or disposable is fine.
During mask breaks, will it be quiet time? We wouldn't want talking and laughter to encourage airborne germs.
That is correct. That's what we're encouraging, quiet time.
Referencing the HVAC question previously asked, how often will the district change the filters in the units? And the bond was several years ago. Do the HVAC systems still meet CDC guidelines?
Yes, they still meet current CDC guidelines as well as SED guidelines. And depending on how much more fresh air we'll be pulling into the building will dictate how often we have to change the filters. And also filter changes are seasonal. You know, we do a lot more in the spring and the fall than we do in the middle of the winter or the middle of the summer. So I can't give an answer on the frequency of the filter changes as needed and what the system shows us.
Will the teacher who teaches the class be the same teacher who is doing the virtual learning?
For the students in the hybrid model, yes. So the teachers will be recording lessons on Wednesdays to put out on the remote days for the students. When they have the students in person, they'll also be talking to them about the activities that they need to complete over the next 3 days of remote learning. And there will be a live check-in daily on the remote learning days as well for the students that are on the hybrid model.
And finally, when will this plan be reevaluated?
We're constantly reevaluating this plan. We've been doing it all summer, and we will continue to do so once the school year begins. We're very excited for the school year to start so that we can see the plan in action. We know that there is no substitute for full-time, in-person, 5-day-a-week instruction with teachers and students interacting. So we will be having conversations, as we did last spring, with different committee members again, so we can take a look at what the practices that we're doing and can things be improved. We're always looking to do the right thing for our students. All right, I think that's the last of our questions. So, you know, on behalf of everyone here on the panel tonight, we thank you for participating. If you have any additional questions, feel free to reach out to the building principal or assistant principal in any of the buildings, or anyone on this panel. We'll be happy to assist you with any questions that you have. And we wish you and your family an enjoyable end to the month of August, and best wishes on a successful, or as successful as it can be under these circumstances, school year. So thank you all. Have a good night.
Thank you, everybody. Good night.
Thank you.